Hello YouTube, it is Mr. Lili Bubba, and I am here with another installment of what I like to call Pokemon Competitive Bios. This week, I am going in-depth on Golem. I'm going to be telling you about its stats, its move pool, its abilities, its typing, the counters that it has against it, and I'm going to give it an overall grade at the end of the video. Now, basic stuff about Golem is a rock and ground type. It is in the NU competitive tier, according to Smogan, and it was introduced in Generation 1. Now, taking a first look at Golem's stats, you can see that it has a passable HP stat of 80. Its attack and defense are both very solid, its attack being 110 and its defense being 130. Its special attack is its second lowest stat, being 55. Its special defense is not stellar either, being 65, and its speed is its worst stat at a base stat of 45. Now, the grade that I chose to give Golem on its stats is a B-, and that's because it does have good defense, but its special defense does not exactly help it to wall anything, and its HP also follows suit. It's passable, but it's not very good when you think about the fact that you could be using this thing defensively. Its attack, on the other hand, despite being good, is outclassed by a lot of other NU Pokemon, including Gigalith, which is usually used for the same purpose, similar to Golem. So that is why I chose to give it a B-. It's a good all around it's a decent all around stat grade, but it's not the best that it could be based on its low special defense and its very mediocre HP stat. Now on to Golem's move pool. Golem I gave a B+. It has good stab coverage. It's got both Earthquake and Stone Edge, which are both physical attacks. And it has access to Gyro Ball, which does more damage when the attack and defense of the Pokemon using it are high and the speed is low, which is of course the case in Golem, as you can see by its attack, defense, and speed stats. However, it does have very bad type coverage when it comes to taking care of its weaknesses. It does have access to Fire Punch and Thunder Punch, but those moves are not very powerful compared to other fire and electric type moves that it could be using, and it doesn't have type coverage to cover some of its other weaknesses, such as fighting. So that is why Golem got a B+ in my grade. The abilities of Golem, I gave a B+. Once again, the same as its move pool. Its three abilities that it has access to are Rockhead, Sandveil, and Sturdy. Now, starting with Rockhead. Rockhead goes well with something like Double Edge because it negates recoil damage for the Pokemon that uses it, and Double Edge, of course, does 1/3 of recoil to the Pokemon using it, but Golem would not be affected by that, and it's actually a very powerful move. Sandveil is probably the downside to its abilities. It grants more evasion in sandstorms. Now that may sound good, but the problem is, in its tier, in NU, there aren't really many Pokemon to base a sand team around, so there's not exactly anything stellar that you could say would come out of having that evasion in a sandstorm, or who's to say that you would even have a sandstorm up? It would kind of be a very risky ability to have. Sturdy, on the other hand, would actually be very helpful in doing things like setting up stealth rocks, which is something that Golem is very, very good for, because of having Sturdy would make sure that if your HP is at full, you cannot be knocked out in one hit. You would survive with 1 HP, no matter what. If you were to be knocked out, you would survive with 1 HP. So, barring anything like Fake Out or Taunt, you would be able to get up Stealth Rocks if you had Sturdy. Now, on to the typing of Golem. Golem I gave a C when it comes to typing. And that is because it is 4 times weak to 2 types, and that is water and grass. And the main problem with that is, on top of that, it doesn't have much to cover its weaknesses of water and grass. It does have Fire and Thunder Punch, but those aren't extremely powerful moves, and if you get something like Torterra that would be bulkier, it would be very hard for Golem to cover those type weaknesses. However, it does have an immunity to both electric, and it has 5 resistances, which is very, very, very helpful. But again, it doesn't have much coverage against other types. It can cover its steel weakness with its ground type moves, so that is good, but fighting it has no way to counter. Water and grass, it has very mediocre ways to counter. But again, it does have immunity to electric and 5 resistances, so it doesn't get a horrible grade, but it doesn't exactly get a good one either. So that is why I gave Golem's typing a C. Counters, Golem has a decent amount of counters in NU, and that is why I chose to give this thing a C-. Of course, the more potent and just the larger amount of counters that a Pokemon gets, the lower grade it's going to get when I give it a counter grade. Again, I gave Golem a C-, and that is because any strong special attack could really take this thing out. Its HP is only base 80, and its special defense is an atrocious base 65 for it being something that would usually be used defensively. And it is also completely crippled by grass-type moves, and grass types in general are pretty decent in NU. There are things like Torterra and Leafeon that can really take this thing down, especially Torterra being able to wall it defensively, and Leafeon resisting its ground-type stab. And things like Misdreavus that have Levitate, and also the move Will-O-Wisp, could render this thing completely useless by burning it, because that is the only thing it can really do to attack. Well, to use anything offensive is to use its attack stat, because its special attack is one of its worst stats. But when it gets burned, it loses that ability to do that by having its attack lowered. And it can't hit Misdreavus with anything like Earthquake due to Levitate. Now that I've taken all those into account, it is time to give Golem its final grade on the video. And it actually took me a while to completely decide on this, but I have chosen to give Golem a B-. It's not a bad grade, it's not a great grade. It's sort of it's right in the middle there when it comes to grading. It's got a decent move pool and abilities. Its abilities are not bad, and its move pool is not bad. They're slightly above average. Its stats are passable when you take into account what it would typically be used for. It can take physical hits, the problem being its HP is not so great, but it does have passable stats. Its typing, I'm going to have to say, though, is bad. Rock and Ground is not a very great typing. There are a lot of weaknesses, and typically Rock and Ground Pokemon are very, very weak when it comes to special defense, which is not very good because there are a lot of strong special water and grass type moves because of the fact that before Gen 4, before the physical special split, water and grass were both special attacks. So of course it has gotten a little bit of a buff when it comes to that ever since Gen 4, but there are still a lot of moves out there that could really screw this thing up. And it has plentiful counters. It really does. Torterra, Leafeon, Misdreavus. It has lots of counters that can really get to it and really, really cripple it. Anything that can levitate and use Will-O-Wisp will get this thing. Any grass type that can take a hit or two, or not even that, because unless it's under Trick Room where the speeds are switched, it would just be a very easy Pokemon to counter if you have anything with a strong special attack. So that is why I chose to give Golem a B-. That is its final grade I have given this Pokemon. So, if you enjoyed this video or you found it to be informative or helpful in how to use this Pokemon competitively, please leave a like rating and comment, of course, with suggestions for what can be improved in the next video, and also what Pokemon you would like to see next. So, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you around.